They said Jones had no heart. They said he could order a man erased from existence while sipping his coffee, and never spill a drop. They said his voice didn't rise when he was angry, because men like him didn't need to raise their voice. Silence was enough. Power was enough. Fear did the rest. And on that night, in the middle of a relentless winter storm that swallowed the city whole, that same man who ruled from the shadows felt something inside him fracture. Not from a bullet. Not from betrayal. But from a boy. The convoy moved slowly through the frozen streets, tires grinding against layers of snow that had turned the asphalt into something unpredictable and dangerous. Inside the lead car, the world was warm. Controlled. Silent. Jones sat in the back seat, perfectly still, his presence filling the space more than any sound could. He wore a charcoal overcoat, tailored with precision, draped over a suit that cost more than most people made in months. His watch ticked quietly, measuring time like it mattered. But to him, it didn't. Time was something other people chased. Jones owned outcomes. Beside the driver sat Victor Hale, his right hand, former intelligence, a man who understood danger before it fully formed. Roads getting worse, Victor muttered, scanning ahead. We might need to reroute. Jones didn't answer. He was staring out the window. Watching nothing. Thinking of nothing. That was his gift. And his curse. 3 hours earlier, he had walked out of a negotiation that would shift control of half the city's shipping routes. No raised voices. No threats. Just a quiet sentence. And 3 men had signed their futures away. That was how Jones operated. No chaos. No spectacle. Just inevitability. The car slowed. Then stopped. Victor leaned forward slightly. Accident ahead, multi-car, roads blocked. Jones blinked once. That was all. Time, he asked. 30 minutes, maybe more. Jones leaned back. 30 minutes. 30 hours. It didn't matter. The world would wait for him either way. Outside, the storm howled. Snow came down in sheets so thick it erased distance, swallowed shapes, blurred reality. The city felt distant. Like it belonged to someone else. And then, light shifted. The headlights from a car behind them swept sideways, cutting across a narrow alley. And in that single moment, Jones saw them. 2 small figures. Barely visible. Hidden in the shadows. The older boy stood with his back against the wind, body hunched forward. He was removing his coat. Not carefully. Not reluctantly. But quickly, urgently. As if time itself was closing in. He wrapped it around the smaller child in front of him. Shielding him. Covering his head. Pulling him close. And then he turned his own back to the storm. The wind hit him full force. Snow clung to his thin shirt almost instantly. His shoulders shook. His hands trembled. But he didn't move. Didn't hesitate. Didn't reconsider. He simply stood there, taking the storm so the smaller boy wouldn't have to. Jones stopped breathing. Around him the world continued. Drivers honked. Engines idled. Someone cursed in the distance. Life went on. Unbothered. Unaware. But Jones couldn't look away. There was something in the way the boy stood. Not fear. Not desperation. Something else. Something older. Something resolute. A decision. Final. Unquestionable. Victor noticed the shift first. Jones had leaned forward slightly. Just enough. What is it? Victor asked. No answer. Jones's eyes stayed locked on the alley. On the boy. On the way his body curved around the smaller child like a shield made of bone and will. Stop the car, Jones said. Victor frowned. We're already stopped. I know. A pause. Then, quieter. Open the door. Victor turned fully now, searching his face. Something was different. Subtle. But unmistakable. Boss, this area isn't ours. No response. Could be a setup. Still, nothing. Jones's hand was already on the door handle. Victor exhaled slowly. Then nodded to the driver. The locks clicked. The door opened. And winter rushed in like it had been waiting. The cold hit like a blade. Sharp. Immediate. Unforgiving. Jones stepped out. Snow soaked into his shoes instantly. Wind clawed at his coat. The storm didn't care who he was. For the first time in years, he didn't control the environment. He stepped into it. Behind him, Victor cursed under his breath and followed. 2 guards moved quickly from the rear car. But even they hesitated. Because something about this wasn't strategy. Wasn't business. This was something else. Jones walked into the alley. And the contrast was brutal. Luxury stepping into ruin. Power stepping into neglect. Trash lined the walls. Ice clung to broken concrete. The air smelled like abandonment. And in the center of it, 2 children. The older boy noticed him first. Instantly, he moved fast, positioning himself in front of the smaller one. Arms out slightly. Not strong. Not threatening. But ready. Ready to fight. Ready to protect. Ready to lose. Jones stopped. A few steps away. The boy's eyes locked onto his. And in that moment, Jones understood something deeply unsettling. That wasn't a child's gaze. It was the gaze of someone who had already seen too much. Lost too much. Endured too much. There was no fear in it. Only calculation. And a quiet, burning refusal. Jones had seen men like that. In war. In betrayal. In the moments before someone chose death over surrender. But never in someone this small. Behind the boy, the younger child clutched him tightly. Silent. Cold. Watching. Jones took 1 step forward. The boy shifted. Lowered his stance. Prepared. Not to run. To attack. Jones stopped immediately. He understood. 1 more step. And the boy would fight. And not because he believed he could win. Because he believed he had no choice. Silence stretched between them. Snow fell harder. Wind screamed through the alley. 2 worlds stood facing each other. 1. A man who could buy the entire street without blinking. The other. A child with nothing. Except the will to stand between danger and someone smaller than him. Jones slowly reached up. And removed his coat. It was expensive. Handmade. Perfect. He didn't offer it. Didn't extend it. Didn't speak. He stepped forward just enough. And placed it on the ground between them. Then stepped back. No pressure. No expectation. Just a choice. The boy looked down. Then back up. Suspicion didn't fade. But something shifted. Just slightly. Jones did something next. That no one in his world would have believed. He lowered himself. And sat down on the freezing ground. Snow soaked through instantly. Cold seeped into bone. But he didn't move. He met the boy at eye level. And for the first time in years, when he spoke, there was no command in his voice. Only a question. What's your name? The boy hesitated. Measured. Watched. Then answered quietly. Lily. Jones nodded once. And him? A glance back. A flicker of hesitation. Noah, my brother. Behind him, the smaller boy began to cry. Weak. Tired. Breaking. Lily turned immediately. All suspicion gone. All attention focused. It's okay, he whispered, pulling him closer. I've got you. Jones watched that moment. Really watched it. And something inside him. Something long buried. Shifted. Not broken. Not healed. Just stirred. And for the first time in years, the most feared man in the city didn't feel powerful. He felt awake. The storm did not end that night. It only changed direction. By the time the convoy moved again, the city had begun to wake. Not with sunlight, but with survival. Jones did not speak during the drive. Not once. Lily's eyes stayed with him. That quiet defiance. That silent refusal to let the world decide what mattered. Victor glanced at him through the mirror. Where to? A pause. Then. Find out where they came from. Victor didn't ask why. He never did. This time. He felt it. Something had shifted. Not strategy. Not ambition. Something human. That same morning, across the city, in a place no one important ever noticed, Angela wiped down table number 7 for the third time. The cafe wasn't elegant. It wasn't even particularly clean. It was the kind of place people went when they had nowhere else to go. Cheap coffee. Loud kitchen. Long hours. Angela fit into it perfectly. Not because she belonged there, but because no one noticed her. That was her skill. She moved quietly. Spoke only when necessary. Listened more than anyone realized. A waitress. Just a waitress. But beneath that, there was something else. Angela had once studied law. Not fully. Not formally finished. But enough. Enough to understand contracts. Enough to read people. Enough to recognize danger disguised as paperwork. Life had pulled her out of that world before she could enter it. Bills. Illness. Loss. Now she carried plates instead of arguments. But knowledge didn't disappear. It waited. And that morning, it would be needed. The lunch rush came early. Workers flooding in. Voices rising. Orders stacking. Angela moved through it like water. Efficient. Invisible. Precise. Until the door opened. And the room changed. Men entered. Well-dressed. Controlled. Dangerous in a way that didn't need to be announced. The owner stiffened immediately. The cook went silent. Even the noise seemed to pull back. Angela noticed. Of course she did. But she kept moving. Tray in hand. Eyes lowered. Because people like her survived by not being seen. Victor stepped in first. Scanning. Assessing. Then Jones followed. He didn't look around like others did. Didn't evaluate. Didn't judge. He simply existed in the space. And the space adjusted around him. Angela approached their table. Calm. Professional. Unremarkable. What can I get for you? She asked. Jones looked at her. For a brief moment, something strange happened. He didn't look through her. He looked at her. Really looked. Angela held the gaze. Not challenging. Not submissive. Just steady. Victor ordered. Coffee. Food. Quick. Angela nodded and left. But as she turned, she heard it. A conversation. Low. Sharp. From the corner table. 2 men. Not with Jones. Not part of his group. And what they said made her stop. Tonight, one whispered. He won't see it coming. Glass switch, no trace. Angela's hand tightened on the tray. Her mind moved instantly. Poison. Delivery method, drink. Timing, imminent. Target. Her eyes flicked back. To Jones. Of course. Power attracts enemies. But this wasn't chaos. This was precise. Planned. And no one else had noticed. Of course they hadn't, because no one listened. Except her. Angela turned toward the kitchen. Heart steady. Steps controlled. Think. If she was wrong, she would lose her job. Maybe worse. If she was right, and said nothing, a man would die. And she would have allowed it. Her jaw tightened. Silence is easy. But silence is often the worst kind of choice. Angela turned. Walked back. Straight toward the table. The room didn't notice. Until she reached forward and knocked the coffee from Jones's hand. The cup shattered on the floor. Silence. Complete. Immediate. Every eye turned. Victor was already on his feet. Hand inside his coat. What are you doing? He snapped. The guards moved. The room froze. Angela stood still. Breathing calm. I'm sorry, she said. He didn't look at Victor. She looked at Jones. And held his gaze. Something in her expression stopped everything. Not fear. Not panic. Certainty. Jones raised a hand. The guards froze instantly. Victor frowned. Boss. Wait. One word. And Power obeyed. Jones looked at Angela. Carefully. Closely. Why? He asked. No anger. No accusation. Just curiosity. Angela didn't hesitate. Because you were about to drink poison. The room inhaled sharply. Victor's eyes snapped toward the other table. The two men bolted. Too late. Guards were already moving. Chaos erupted. But Jones didn't move. Didn't react. He was still watching her. Explain, he said. Angela nodded slightly. Two men, back table. They discussed a glass switch. Timing matched your order. A pause. I didn't have proof. Another pause. But I didn't need it. Silence. Jones studied her. Long. Unblinking. Most people would be shaking. Terrified. Apologizing. She wasn't. She had made a decision. And stood by it. Even now. Victor returned. Reading controlled. They're secured. A beat. She's right. Jones nodded once. Then. Something unexpected. He leaned back. And said. Bring her a chair. The entire room froze again. Victor blinked. What? Jones didn't look at him. Bring her a chair. Angela didn't move. This wasn't part of her world. This wasn't supposed to happen. But the chair came. Placed beside the table. Jones gestured. Sit. She hesitated. Then spoke quietly. I'm working. A flicker. Not defiance. Principle. Jones almost smiled. Now you're not. Silence stretched. Angela slowly sat. And just like that, the invisible waitress had stepped into power. Not by force. Not by ambition. But because she refused to stay silent. Jones leaned forward slightly. What's your name? Angela. He nodded. Then said something no one expected. From this moment forward, you don't serve tables. Victor frowned. The room tensed. Jones's voice remained calm. You observe, you speak when something is wrong. A pause. And you don't apologize for it. Angela held his gaze. And for the first time, there was something new in her eyes. Not fear. Not caution. Recognition. Of something shifting. Power. Listening. Power does not invite. It absorbs. Angela understood that the moment she stepped out of the cafe that evening and found a car waiting. Not a taxi. Not something ordinary. A statement. Victor stood beside it. Hands behind his back. Expression unreadable. You're coming with us, he said. Not a question. Angela adjusted her coat. Her voice calm. I didn't agree to that. Victor's jaw tightened slightly. Most people didn't speak like that to him. Most people didn't speak at all. But before he could respond, the rear door opened. Jones stepped out. Snow crunched under polished shoes. The storm had softened, but winter still lingered in the air like a warning. Then let's correct that, he said. Angela looked at him. Really looked this time. This was the man she had interrupted. The man others feared. But she did not lower her eyes. I have a job, she said, and a life. Jones nodded once. I'm not taking either from you. A pause. I'm offering you a choice. That word mattered. Angela noticed. Choice. Not command. What kind of choice? She asked. Jones stepped closer, but not too close. Respecting distance. The kind where you walk away right now. A beat. Or you step into something bigger than this street. Angela didn't answer immediately. Because she understood something most people didn't. Power rarely explains itself. So if it was offering explanation now, it meant something was wrong. What's the catch? She asked. Jones's eyes sharpened slightly. No catch. A pause. But there is a condition. Of course there was. Angela folded her arms. Say it. Jones held her gaze. You speak when something is wrong. Angela frowned slightly. That's it? No, Jones said quietly. You keep speaking, even when it becomes dangerous. Silence. That was the real condition. Not obedience. Courage. Angela exhaled slowly. And if I say no? Jones stepped back. Then you go back inside. A glance toward the cafe. And nothing changes. He meant it. Angela could see that. No threats. No pressure. Just truth. That made it harder. Because real choices always were. She thought of the conversation she overheard. The poison. The certainty. She thought of how close death had been. And how no one else had noticed. And then she said, I don't follow orders blindly. Jones nodded. I wouldn't want you to. Another pause. And I don't belong to anyone. Something flickered in his expression. Approval. Good, he said. Then Angela stepped forward. Then I have conditions too. Victor stiffened. No one negotiated with Jones. No one. But Jones didn't interrupt. He waited. Angela spoke clearly. I don't lie for you. A beat. I don't help you hurt innocent people. Another. And if I decide something is wrong, I walk away. Silence fell between them. This wasn't negotiation. This was definition. Of boundaries. Of morality. Of power being challenged. Victor watched closely. Expecting rejection. Instead. Jones nodded. Agreed. Victor blinked. Angela didn't. She had expected that. Because she had seen it earlier. In the cafe. He listened. Even before proof. Even before certainty. That was power. Not control. Control was easy. Listening. Was rare. Then I'll come, Angela said. And just like that. The balance shifted. Not because she stepped into his world. But because she brought her rules with her. The building rose above the city like something carved out of intention. Glass. Steel. Precision. Angela stepped inside without hesitation. People turned. Of course they did. Not at her. At him. This time. She wasn't invisible. Because she walked beside power. And power did not ignore her. Inside the private office. Silence returned. The door closed. And the world narrowed. Jones moved behind the desk. Angela remained standing. She didn't sit unless invited. And he noticed that. Sit, he said. She did. Not submissively. Deliberately. Victor remained by the door. Watching. Listening. Jones spoke first. The attempt today wasn't random. Angela nodded. I figured. He studied her. No questions. I prefer answers, she replied. A flicker again. He almost smiled. Internal, he said. That word carried weight. Someone close to me ordered it. Angela's expression didn't change. But her mind did. Internal threats were the most dangerous. Because they had access. Trust. Timing. Family? She asked. Something like that. Jones leaned back. There's a deal happening. Large. Disruptive. Angela listened. Not intimidated. Not overwhelmed. Processing. Someone wants control before it closes, he continued. And removing you makes that easier. Angela nodded slowly. Then the poison wasn't the plan. Jones's eyes sharpened. Explain. Angela leaned forward slightly. It was too visible. A beat. Too public. Victor frowned. They would have gotten away. No, Angela interrupted calmly. They would have created noise. Silence. Jones watched her carefully now. Not as a bystander. But as something else. Equal in thought. Angela continued. The real plan is something quieter. She tapped the table lightly. Contracts. Victor's expression changed. Jones didn't move. But something shifted. Angela's voice remained steady. If you die publicly, investigations follow. A pause. But if you sign something, before that, Another pause. Then control transfers cleanly. Silence. Heavy. Precise. Jones spoke slowly. They're forcing a signature. Angela nodded. Or preparing one. Victor stepped forward. There are no pending contracts. Angela cut him off gently. There are always pending contracts. She looked at Jones. You just haven't seen the dangerous one yet. Silence. Then. Jones stood. Decision made. Bring everything, he said. Victor moved immediately. Within minutes. Files covered the table. Stacks of agreements. Legal structures. Ownership transfers. Angela stood. Walked over. And began reading. Not quickly. Not dramatically. Carefully. Line by line. Word by word. Time passed. No one spoke. Because something important was happening. Not power being enforced. Power being examined. Angela stopped. One file. Thin. Unremarkable. But wrong. She turned it. Faced Jones. This one. Victor frowned. That's standard. No, Angela said calmly. And then she pointed. Clause 14. Jones stepped closer. Read. Silence. Then. His expression changed. Not anger. Recognition. It transfers control, he said quietly. Angela nodded. Not immediately. A pause. But permanently. Victor swore under his breath. Who authorized this? Jones didn't answer. Because he already knew. Internal. Close. Trusted. Angela stepped back. This wasn't about killing you. A beat. It was about replacing you. Silence filled the room. Cold. Sharp. Real. Jones looked at her. And in that moment, he didn't see a waitress. He saw strategy. Clarity. Truth. What do you need? He asked. Angela met his gaze. Access. Victor tensed again. Absolutely not. Jones raised a hand. Silence. Granted, he said. Angela nodded once. Then added. And transparency. Jones didn't hesitate. Done. Another pause. And protection for anyone not involved. A longer silence. Victor watched him. This mattered. Because this was where power usually refused. Where lines were crossed. Where innocence became collateral. Jones spoke. Agreed. And just like that, the war began. Not with guns. Not with threats. But with truth. And the one person no one had noticed was now at the center of it. Not because she wanted power, but because she refused to let power go unchecked. Power does not break quietly. When threatened, it turns inward. The moment Angela identified the contract, the countdown began. Not visible. Not announced. But inevitable. Jones stood at the window, the city stretching beneath him like a map of decisions already made. Who signed it? Victor asked. Jones didn't answer immediately. Because the answer was personal. Daniel. The name fell softly. Too softly. Victor went still. Daniel Reyes. Second in command. Partner. Trusted for over a decade. Not just business. Family. Angela didn't react outwardly. But inside, he understood the gravity instantly. Internal betrayal wasn't about money. It was about access. Timing. And certainty. He won't act again the same way, she said quietly. Victor looked at her sharply. What do you mean? Angela turned toward them. He tested once. A beat. He failed. Another. So now, he adapts. Jones watched her carefully. How? Angela's voice didn't change. Something quieter. A pause. Something you won't see coming. Silence. Victor exhaled slowly. We tighten security. Angela shook her head. That makes it worse. Both men looked at her. Why? Because now he knows you're aware. A beat. So he won't aim at you. Jones's eyes narrowed slightly. Angela finished. He'll aim at something you won't protect in time. Silence. And then it clicked. Victor's expression darkened. The kids. Across the city, Illy and Noah sat in the small back room of the cafe. Angela had insisted. If they're outside again, they become targets. Jones hadn't argued. He simply made it happen. The owner didn't ask questions. Didn't dare. Now the boys had warmth. Food. But still, they stayed close to each other. Because survival doesn't disappear overnight. It lingers. Illy sat by the window, watching the snow fall more gently now. Looks different from inside, he said quietly. Angela smiled faintly. Yes. A pause. Everything does. Noah slept beside him, wrapped in a blanket too large for his small frame. Illy adjusted it instinctively. Always watching. Always protecting. Angela noticed. Of course she did. And something in her chest tightened. Because children like him shouldn't have to learn that kind of vigilance. Back at the tower, the air had changed. Plans were no longer theoretical. They're already moving, Victor said, checking his phone. How? Jones asked. Daniel's accounts just shifted assets. Angela stepped closer. Where? Victor showed her. She scanned it quickly. Then, her expression hardened. This isn't financial. Jones looked at her. Explain. Angela pointed. These transfers fund movement. A pause. People, not money. Victor swore under his breath. He's mobilizing. Angela nodded. And fast. Jones turned. Already moving. Send a team to the cafe. Victor hesitated. They'll see it coming. Angela spoke immediately. Not if we don't make it obvious. Jones stopped. Looked at her. Say it. Angela stepped forward. We don't protect the target. A beat. We move it. Silence. Victor frowned. Too risky. It's already risky, Angela said calmly. They're watching patterns. A pause. So we break them. Jones held her gaze. You're suggesting we remove the boys before Daniel strikes. Another pause. And make him think he still has the advantage. Silence stretched. Then, Jones nodded. Do it. The cafe. Evening. Nothing looked different. That was the point. Angela moved naturally. Serving. Watching. But her eyes tracked everything. Every door. Every face. Every movement. Illy noticed. You're different today, he said quietly. Angela glanced at him. How? You're listening more. She smiled slightly. I always listen. Illy shook his head. No, today you're waiting. Angela paused. Then nodded. Yes. He didn't ask more. Children like him didn't need explanations. They understood tension instinctively. The door opened. A man entered. Ordinary. Average. Forgettable. Which made him dangerous. Angela saw it immediately. Not because of how he looked, but because of what he didn't do. He didn't scan the room. He didn't hesitate. He moved with quiet certainty. Like someone who already knew where everything was. Angela stepped closer to Illy. Time to go. His body tensed instantly. No questions. Okay. He lifted Noah gently. Angela led them toward the back. Not rushed. Not obvious. Just moving. The man sat. Ordered nothing. Watched. Angela saw that too. Confirmation. They were seconds ahead. Behind the cafe. A quiet alley. Different from the one before. But still. Cold. Still. Unforgiving. A car waited. Engine running. Victor stepped out. Now, he said. Angela opened the door. Illy climbed in, holding Noah tight. Then paused. He looked at Angela. You're coming too, right? A simple question. But it carried something deeper. Trust. Angela nodded. Yes. He got in. The door closed. The car pulled away. Seconds later, inside the cafe, the man stood, walked toward the back, opened the door. Empty. Silence. Then, his expression changed. Too late. Back in the car. Noah stirred. Ellie held him tighter. Where are we going? He asked. Angela answered softly. Somewhere safe. A pause. You'll like it. He nodded. Because he believed her. At the tower, Jones waited. Still. Silent. But inside, the storm had returned. Victor entered. They missed. Jones nodded once. And Daniel? He asked. Victor's expression darkened. He knows. Angela stepped forward. Good. Both men looked at her. Why good? Because now he's desperate. A pause. And desperate people make mistakes. Silence. Jones studied her again. You're certain? Angela met his gaze. No. A beat. But I'm willing to act anyway. That answer meant more than certainty ever could. Jones nodded. Then we finish this. And somewhere, across the city, Daniel Reyes stood in the shadows. Watching. Waiting. And for the first time, he realized something dangerous. This wasn't just about Jones anymore. There was someone else. Someone unexpected. Someone invisible. Who had stepped into the game. And changed it. Angela. There is a moment. Just before everything breaks. When truth becomes unavoidable. Not hidden. Not negotiable. Unavoidable. That moment came 3 nights later. The meeting had been arranged. Public. Deliberate. A gathering of investors, partners, and figures who operated in that quiet space between legality and influence. A place where power didn't shout. It simply existed. Jones stood at the center of it. Composed. Untouchable. To everyone else, this was business. To him, this was the end of a war. Angela stood near the back. Unseen again. Just a shadow among many. Exactly where she chose to be. Because visibility was only useful when timed correctly. Victor moved through the room. Eyes scanning. Every exit mapped. Every risk calculated. Daniel will be here, he said quietly to Jones. Jones didn't respond. He was waiting. Not for Daniel. For the moment. Angela watched the room differently. She didn't look for power. She looked for imbalance. For tension. For the person who believed they had already won. And then, she saw him. Daniel Reyes. Perfectly composed. Perfectly confident. Too confident. He walked in like a man who had already rewritten the ending. And that was his mistake. The meeting began. Words flowed. Agreements were discussed. Numbers exchanged. Everything looked normal. That was the illusion. Until Jones stood. Silence followed instantly. It always did. I have something to clarify, he said. Calm. Measured. Daniel's eyes flickered. Just slightly. But Angela saw it. And that was enough. Jones continued. A contract was introduced recently. The room shifted. Subtly. Clause 14. Now. People paid attention. Because details like that meant consequences. Daniel spoke. Smooth. Controlled. A standard protection clause. Angela moved. Not quickly. Not dramatically. But with intention. She stepped forward. And for the second time, she interrupted power. Not protection, she said calmly. Transfer. The room stilled. All eyes turned. Not at Jones. At her. The invisible waitress. Who wasn't invisible anymore. Victor watched carefully. Ready? Jones didn't stop her. He didn't need to. Because this was her moment. Angela walked forward. Each step precise. That clause doesn't activate on death, she continued. A pause. It activates on incapacitation. Murmurs spread. Daniel's jaw tightened. Angela turned slightly, facing the room. Meaning control transfers, before anyone realizes something is wrong. Silence deepened. She looked at Daniel now. You weren't planning to kill him immediately. A beat. You were planning to replace him. Daniel smiled faintly. A serious accusation. Angela nodded. Yes. Then. She reached into her bag and placed documents on the table. Which is why I brought proof. The room leaned in. Victor's eyes flicked to Jones. Jones didn't move. He trusted her. Completely. Angela opened the file. Financial transfers, she said. Personnel movement. A pause. And communication logs. Daniel's expression didn't change. But something behind it shifted. Angela continued. You funded the poison attempt. Gasps. You failed. Another pause. So you moved to phase 2. She tapped the document. Control. Silence. Heavy. Unavoidable. Daniel finally spoke. You think this changes anything? Angela met his gaze. Yes. A beat. Because you made one mistake. The room held its breath. You assumed no one would notice. And then. She stepped back. Not dramatic. Not triumphant. Just, done. Her role fulfilled. The truth. Delivered. Victor moved first. Guards stepped in. Daniel didn't resist. He didn't need to. Because his defeat was already complete. Not physical. Reputational. Structural. Irreversible. The room erupted into controlled chaos. Deals shifted. Alliances recalculated. Power realigned. Jones didn't look at any of that. He looked at Angela. And for the first time, he stepped down. Not physically, but something deeper. He walked toward her. Stopped. And said quietly, You could have stayed silent. Angela held his gaze. Yes. A pause. But then, I'd be part of it. Silence. Jones nodded slowly, as if confirming something long unspoken. Say, he said. Not an order. An offer. Angela didn't answer immediately. Because this was the moment. Not of power, but of choice. I'll stay, she said finally. A beat. But not as yours. Victor stiffened slightly. Jones didn't. Then as what? He asked. Angela met his eyes. As someone who tells you when you're wrong. Silence. Then. Something rare happened. Jones smiled. Not fully. Not openly. But real. Then I need you more than anyone else here. Behind them. Daniel was taken away. Not with violence. But with certainty. His power gone. His control dismantled. Not by force. But by truth. And in that room. Among men who had built empires on silence. One woman had spoken. And everything changed. But the story was not over. Because power had fallen. But something else had risen. Power can destroy. Power can command. Power can silence. But the rarest kind of power listens and changes. Weeks passed. Not quietly, but decisively. Daniel's removal didn't just end a betrayal. It exposed a system. One built on fear. On silence. On decisions no one questioned. And now, those decisions were being questioned. By one person. Angela. Jones's office no longer felt the same. The air had changed. Not weaker. Different. More deliberate. Files still covered the desk. Deals still moved across the city. Power still existed. But now, there was a second voice in the room. Clause 7, Angela said calmly, flipping a page. Jones looked up. What about it? It's legal. A pause. But it's wrong. Victor leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Watching. Weeks ago he would have intervened. Corrected. Now. He listened. Jones leaned back slightly. Explain. Angela didn't rush. It traps small vendors into dependency. A beat. They'll sign it because they need survival. Silence. And then? Jones asked. Angela met his gaze. They'll never get out. Another silence. This was the difference now. Not what was legal, but what was right. Jones closed the file. Remove it. Victor raised an eyebrow. That'll cost. I know, Jones said. And that was the end of it. Across the city. Changes followed. Quietly. Contracts were written. Practices adjusted. Not perfect. But better. Because one voice refused to let power operate without conscience. And yet, Angela never moved into his world fully. She kept her job. Still wore the apron. Still served coffee. Because that was her choice. And Jones never tried to change it. Every week, he came. Not as a boss. Not as a ruler. Just a man. Walking into a small cafe. Lily saw him first. Always. You're late, the boy said one afternoon, arms folded. Jones glanced at his watch. 3 minutes. Lily nodded seriously. That's still late. Jones paused. Then. Sat down. I'll improve. Lily accepted that. Because improvement was enough. Noah ran over next. Did you bring it? He asked excitedly. Jones reached into his coat. Pulled out a small chocolate bar. Noah grinned. You always do. Consistency matters, Jones said. Angela watched from behind the counter. And for the first time, she allowed herself to feel something she had denied for years. Relief. Not dependence. Not obligation. Just relief. Later that evening, the cafe quieted. The boys sat at a table. Drawing. Angela wiped the counter slowly. Jones stood near the window. The snow had returned. Soft this time. Gentle. Looks different now, he said. Angela glanced outside. Yes. A pause. Because you're not watching it alone. Silence settled between them. Not heavy. Comfortable. Jones turned slightly. There's something I need to offer you. Angela didn't look at him immediately. Because she already knew. Position? She asked. Yes. Wealth? Yes. A different life? Yes. She turned then. Met his gaze. And if I say no? Jones didn't hesitate. Then nothing changes. A beat. You keep everything you've chosen. Angela studied him. Carefully. Not the power. Not the reputation. The man. The one who had stepped into the snow. The one who had listened without proof. The one who had changed. Without being asked to. And then. She answered. I don't want power. Jones nodded slowly. I know. Angela continued. But I'll stay. A pause. On my terms. Another. I speak when something's wrong. Jones almost smiled. I wouldn't have it any other way. Behind them. Lily looked up from his drawing. Angela, he said. She walked over. What is it? He turned the paper. A flame. But different now. Larger. Brighter. And around it. 4 figures. Lily pointed. That's me. Another. That's Noah. Another. That's you. Then. He hesitated. And pointed to the 4th. That's him. Jones didn't move. Didn't speak. Because something in his chest had already answered. Lily looked up. The fire's bigger now. A simple sentence. But it carried everything. Warmth. Safety. Belonging. Angela placed a hand gently on Lily's shoulder. Yes, she said softly. It is. That night, Jones stood alone in his office once more. The city stretched beneath him. unchanged. And yet, everything was different. On his desk lay two things: a contract, written, and a drawing, a flame. He looked at both, and understood something that had taken him a lifetime to learn. Power wasn't in control. It wasn't in fear. It wasn't in how many people obeyed. Power was in the moment you chose to do what was right, even when no one was watching, even when it cost you, even when silence would have been easier. Because silence was never neutral. It was a decision. And Angela had chosen differently. And because she did, a boy no longer stood in the snow alone. A man no longer ruled without conscience. And a world that had once been cold now held a fire. Final reflection. Sometimes the strongest people are the ones no one notices. The ones who don't seek power, but challenge it. Because real strength is not in being feared. It's in being willing to speak the truth when it would be easier to stay silent. And sometimes, all it takes is one voice to change everything. If this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss the next powerful story that might change the way you see the world.